got 6 things that every podcast studio forgot. This time, inside the Two Guys Talking video series for the 5-week video series challenge. We have all crafted our own podcast studios, either based on something that you've seen on the internet or seen on a video someplace, or read someplace online inside of an entry that said it was a must-have piece of equipment or a doodad that belonged inside of your podcast studio. But I've got 6 things that I think you, everybody, should have inside your studio. Number 1. Clamps of every kind known to man. These clamps that I'm holding here aren't just little pieces of gold inside of a studio environment. They're incredibly inexpensive. These plastic ones in particular, you'll recognize them. They're just a standard plastic clamp that you can get at, well, you can frankly get them anywhere. I've seen them at hardware stores. I've seen them inside of grocery stores, inside of the end caps. They're all over the place, and they just close together and do what they need to. They open up with one hand, which is always very good. And they come in different sizes and shapes. These all just happen to be black, which is my favorite. Some of you might also mention that the little plastic ends pop off. And they do. And I think they're even more useful when they do pop off. Anyway, clamps of every shape and size. Oh, and these metal ones I got, they were on sale for a dime at a closeout store. A local hardware store was going out of business. So I got 40 of these that I just stick inside of a toolbox, and now I've got them everywhere, but also inside the studio. They're great for sticking on to, mic arms and stuff to make sure the wires are in and whatever else you need. They'll all stay right there. Again, clips of every shape and size. Foam. We're all familiar with foam. It's probably all over many of the walls that you guys have. Here inside the Two Guys Talking Podcast Studio West, we've got actually sound suppression panels that we've built. And foam is almost a requisite inside of any studio environment that I'm aware of. Whether it's professional, whether it's a retail environment, or something that you've made at home, you've probably got some foam. But do you have a piece of foam that's going to then be a resting point for cell phones? That's right. This and 4 others inside of this environment at the Two Guys Talking Studio West environment. These are actually so people can put their phone on them, and so when it's on vibrate, you don't hear the on the table inside of your podcast environment. Isn't that cool? So again, foam. I'm a little teacup hook. That's right, a teacup hook. How many of you even knew this was out there? Now, what we use these for inside of the Two Guys Talking environment is to actually screw in underneath the tables. And then all of the cables that you have, the cables will actually go in underneath this lip, slip over the hook, and now they'll still come out with the applied pressure, but they won't easily come out and then make you frustrated. You have to really pull on them, and then they'll come out back through the teacup hook. Teacup hooks, man. I don't know how I was an adult as long as I was without knowing about teacup hooks. A knife. How stupid is it that so many of us are walking around without a knife either in your pocket or inside of your studio environment? I have probably 4 or 5 of them hanging around, and then there's always one in my back pocket. The one that I carry currently is this one from Kershaw. I'll have a link in the description down below for it. It's incredibly sharp. It's got a couple of tools that are built into the handle in case I need them. And it just allows you some really great gripping power for things that you might need to cut, like tape or cords, cable, whatever else you need to cut inside of the studio environment. It's a great one. I also recommend a multi-tool. This is in the same vein because obviously it's got a knife on it. But any multi-tool you can go and get. This is a standard Sheffield kick-assery multi-tool. Multi-tools are a great thing to have inside of a studio environment as well, and far too many studios do not have them included inside of their environment. The last blade that I showed is the one that I showed first, and it's one of the last things that my dad gave me. It's a small pocket knife with the name Wilkerson on it. Thanks, Dad. All of you should have one inside of your studio environment too. What about friction tape? Friction tape. It's a very interesting tape. It's not just sticky on one side, which is always great for tape, but it's also kind of felty on one side and is almost invisible on every single mic arm that I know. And it's so much nicer looking than a giant piece of duct tape or some other kind of tape that often is very hard to remove, where this is not hard to remove. It's easy to take off in general, and then some quick goo off will remove all the sticky residue. But friction tape, incredibly inexpensive at local hardware stores, and something that everybody should look at. And the last thing that every studio forgot, it's the twist tie bundle. That's right. This is not only incredibly valuable, it's not only incredibly easy to store, it costs nothing. You know all of those little twist ties that you take off of whatever the hell you've bought and put someplace? Well, start putting them into a smaller nest like this one, and then tuck it away inside of, say, a toolbox or inside of a drawer inside of your studio. And after a period of time, your smaller bundle like this one suddenly becomes something that looks like this. That is my master twist tie bundle from over the course of several years. This is brilliant, again, for securing cables of any kind, especially temporarily before you put, say, friction tape around them. There are so many awesome things that you can do with simple twist ties. Many of them are incredibly robust and strong and should always be used, and are always something that has been forgotten inside of a podcast studio environment. So now that we've gone through all 6 of those, I'm curious, what do you guys have inside of your podcast studios that every other studio forgot? Let us know by going over to 2guystalking.com. That's the number 2guystalking.com. Click on the contact button, fill out that quick web form, and tell us, what do you have inside your studio environment that all the other studios forgot? I'm Mike Wilkerson from the 2 Guys Talking Podcast Network. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.